Hey there. We are back from RSA. Welcome to I don't know, sixth or seventh one of these that we've done. I feel like the camera's zoomed in too far. I'm way off on the side. You're way off on the side.
Maybe we moved our chairs.
There we go. That's better.
Better?
Did a lot of pre-show. It even caused the camera to freak out, so that was good.
Yeah.
That
You
was good.
moved, I pretended to move.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like we did a thing.
We need one of those fancy AI head tracking cams where you can like go all over. It's funny. We'll use those on people in the company have them, and they'll leave the room during a call, and we'll follow them out the door, and then it just tries to figure things out. It's just looking around the room, checking out their office, looking for a human. It's pretty good when the AI gets confused. I think you just need to leave like a stuffed animal there for it to focus on in your absence. It's probably.
Is that what it is?
I don't know. It seems like a good idea. Anyway, we spent last week at RSA, which was adventurous
And long?
and long. Yeah.
I mean, it was RSA. It is what RSA is, right?
Well, I guess that begs the question, like, what is RSA in this day and age? Like in 2025, what's your perception of RSA as a conference?
Well, so I've never attended, not once, not ever, as a full conference attendee.
Sure.
So let's start there, right? So I've only ever attended as an exhibit pass holder. But I'm not sure that really changes my perception. I think by and large, from the first time I attended 12, 13, 14 years ago till now, it is I think fundamentally the same from my perception. I think the execution has changed a little bit, both in good ways and in exploded ways.
Yeah. I mean, I think you went to your first RSA before I did.
I was trying to think of that the other day, and I don't know. I don't know that it matters, because even if I did, I only preceded you by like a year or two. So it's not like I have runtime here.
Yeah, but I mean, so the con is kind of busted up into multiple parts. There's like a learning kind of a conventional conference with training sessions and technical talks and that kind of thing, which I guess is quote the full conference when you go to buy it from RSA. And then there's the expo, which is the trade show floor, and they're certainly not totally discreetly different, but that's pretty different experience, right? There are a lot of people that just go to be on the expo floor, to go look at all the companies, to collect swag, have meetings, talk with peers and whatever, and aren't going to be full conference attendees ever, because a full conference is pretty expensive. It's a couple $1,000s, I think, to attend the full thing. And so it's or you can spend $100 and just go walk around on the vendor floor, which is what I mean, at least anecdotally, most of the people
what a fair number of people do. But
Yeah.
that's not any different than other conferences, in a lot of ways, right?
Sure.
I mean,
It's just the scale is huge.
the scale's huge, right?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's a really good point. So, we went out there on Monday, and technically, or actually, we went out Sunday, I guess. No, Monday. God, it's such a long.
I have no
week.
idea. We went out there.
Such a long week. And for us, we exhibited in the early stage expo. So RSA has the main conference floor. For anyone that's been to Moscone, knows that there's kind of underground, on two sides of the street. There's this huge underground conference facility. And then above ground, there's smaller conference rooms and that kind of thing. And they're still pretty large, but the underground space is where all the action is. And so the big companies buy their space downstairs, and there's many hundreds of vendors down there.
Oh, many hundreds.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the overall vendor list for RSA is well over 300-400.
Oh, it's got to be. I'm just trying to do some quick
it's got to
math.
be like 600.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge.
650 or something.
And then upstairs, where some of the conference tracks are, they have a room that they call the early stage expo. And even in the early stage expo, I think there were two classes of companies that were like the really, really early stage.
Well, they have
like
what
this.
they call early stage and then next stage.
Next stage. So
Yeah.
And both of them are, unlike kind of a quote normal trade show, the booths are like canned. And so when we signed up, we sent them our art, and that was it. And then they take care of all the material, the putting together the booth. There's a TV waiting for us, a monitor waiting for us, and then our logo and some catchphrase. And the room is full of these booths that all look the same, except for there's different logos on the wall.
Do I have the ability to share from this?
Can you see the Apple TV from there?
I don't know. Let me check.
Okay. Look for the one that says Office. And then I will cut to you. We'll see how this goes. You ready?
Yeah. Check that out.
Hey, that worked. We're not in the picture, but that's okay.
What do you mean we're not?
No, I mean we're in that picture. There's supposed to be a picture in picture, but I apparently dorked up something with OBS, so it's okay.
Picture in picture didn't work?
Well, yes, it did, but OBS is having a problem.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, so there's us.
Yeah, but so up in the early stage expo area, all the booths are the same, which is really nice because you don't run into kind of that like booth extravagance that happens downstairs, which, neither here nor there, but it's, it's not, there's no, the bells and whistles aren't what attract you to the booth. It's actually, the content of the booth and what the organization does that either compels you to stop and talk or not. Right. I mean, there was kind of a little, some booths had like a little coffee machine or whatever, but there was a little bit of that going on, but it wasn't, those booths are so small. You literally couldn't do much.
No.
Right? So
no, the people next to us had like a hat tray and they were giving hats away and it took up like a good chunk of their space. I mean, it's not a large space to operate in. So people aren't coming up there necessarily to swag hunt. And it's not to say we didn't give away swag, but they're not coming up there to swag hunt versus downstairs where like swag hunting is a way of life for some people.
Yeah. I'll tell this quick story without naming names, but we saw this gentleman walk by the booth and he was carrying this bag and it was, I'm going to see if I get my hands on camera. When I say large, I mean, it was like...
It was at least 3 feet across.
It was very large.
Yeah.
And at first I was kind of like, well, it's a very odd bag. I would never use that bag like that. It was very, kind of a flat bag. It wasn't even a big base or anything. And then I'm kind of looking, I actually stopped the guy and I was like, did you pick up the bag? And they had won it. They'd spun a wheel somewhere and it was one of the minor prizes you could win on this wheel. And as I was talking to him, I was like, wait, no, I get it. They win. And he kind of looked at me and I was like, sir, what's inside your bag? And he was like, oh. And certainly inside his bag was every single other bag that he had picked up during the course of the day. So, there's kind of, but you can't have the bag be too big. Otherwise you start like folding them and stuffing them inside the kind of perfectly sized large bag that you might pick up. So there's some heavy swag game happening downstairs. Certainly if you want to be walking advertisements, that kind of thing is happening. And then there's certainly some bigger swag items being given away for badge scans, and more engagement. Sit down, listen to us talk. We'll give you like a whole gift basket kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
Which, I'm curious, depending on the company and the type of service being provided or product being sold, how well that works in the end. I'm sure it does work to a point, right?
Yeah.
And certainly as far as branding, and all that kind of stuff goes, who knows? But we all, if you've been in this industry for a while, you know that the ROI on events like these and tracking that over time can be difficult, and certainly isn't always immediate. So I'm just curious. There's a lot of money that gets spent downstairs at RSA and other big shows similar to it. So curious.
Yeah, it's a lot of these companies come into RSA as exhibitors thinking like, one sale pays for the price of the whole thing. And depending on the size of the thing that you're selling, it can.
Certainly can, yeah.
For sure. But, for us, it was kind of, brand awareness. We're just kind of coming out the gate and getting people to know who we are. And so there was a lot of value in that regardless of what converts. But it's, and it's an open-ended question of like how many people are on the floor actually as buyers versus other industry people looking at each other, analysts, students, that kind of thing. And it's not that, people who aren't a buyer of cybersecurity products today might not be one in 3 or 4 years. So knowing and talking to these people is still important.
Well, and I think the metrics for everybody down there is going to be different. Are they obviously everybody's looking to sell something, right? But then also if they're heavy into recruitment that year,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, we had 3 or 4 at least people stop by looking for jobs, and then like another, wow, like 6 or 7 peddling their own wares.
especially in the early stage expo, you had a lot of
Yeah.
people coming by who especially were like go-to-market specialists or marketing, like graphics kind of
Yeah.
folks stopping by, and I actually, I get it. I mean that's the place to be if you're doing that kind of business. Most of them I found to be actually very respectful and just kind of it was just a conversation, very quick one.
Yeah, because they recognize like, hey, I'm taking your time and you're here to talk to people who might be interested in buying. So, here, let me just give you my quick pitch and be on my way, which I appreciated. So, and actually our website development team, so we outsource our website development to a company called Prompt Digital.
Who we love.
We love
Love.
So if you Google Prompt Digital, you'll track them down. And Gala and Jason from Prompt were there and peddling their wares, as it were. And
In a quite serious way, as it turns out.
yeah, so they meet us and they come to our booth, and we've been using them since the beginning of Turngate, and have never met them face to face. But we have a strong enough relationship that most of us had thought like we must have met face to face at some point because we worked so much together and we synced up. They worked very well with us in the early days, and still to this day. But I mean, they really got our brand and who we were, and so it's been great to work with them.
Yeah, our philosophies are very well aligned.
Very
right?
well aligned. And so we see them, and they're wearing big black overalls.
Yeah.
And then Jason was carrying a bag. And in the bag was the swag that they were giving away, which were crescent wrenches. He had 100.
Kind of like they were like about like 6 inches, maybe long, but they were not light.
Yeah, still proper cast crescent wrenches. And he had 100 of them in a freaking bag and was lugging them around. And apparently, so when you go to RSA, you have to clear security. And they're doing a weapons check, and I think they're just looking for large things because, like, I carried in 5 laptops and they did not care a lick. But I guess when they ran a bag through with 100 wrenches in it, on day 1, it required some discussion. But by day 2, they were like, "Oh, the wrench guy's back!" Like he just came through, and they ran the bag of wrenches through the metal detector, and everything was fine. But he had a bag of wrenches that he lugged around to RSA. That's
great. It was great. It was such a great piece of, very, very usable piece of swag and very targeted. So
yes, yeah, very, very targeted. But if you're looking for website development, Prompt has been great. Couldn't speak highly enough of their services and them as a people. They've been wonderful.
And they help us out. I mean, they helped us with this piece of art behind us too. So they've helped us out with so many things.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was good. But I think otherwise, like RSA, it was a good time for us to test our messaging and talk to people about like SaaS audit logs and what are they going to do with them and that kind of thing. There was a lot of interest, a lot of pain around it, which was, I mean, I'd say from our perspective, good, right? People were all like, "Oh, I deal with SaaS audit logs all the time and it sucks." Like, I feel for you. By the way, may I interest you in this thing that we've built, and that can help you out. But I mean, we had a lot of other good discussions in general about kind of the state of the industry and what's going on. There's a lot of happy hours that we went to and talked to people or tried. Some of them were loud.
Oh my gosh.
Very loud.
There was 1 or 2 that were, I don't know if it was the venue. I mean, because most of these were well attended, but that particular venue, I think it was just, was spacious, right? So the sound was kind of bouncing all over the place.
Yeah, it can be just overwhelming.
Very,
So
very
yeah,
loud.
the after hours, there's a lot of after hours action at RSA. And there's also a lot of invite only in the sense of like you have to have a certain job to go to a thing. And so we did the pitch for charity that was run by Okta and Sentinel One and sponsored by the Security Tinkerers. And
hosted by the
Is that the proper?
Yeah, I believe it. Well, it was at Okta's offices, right?
Yeah.
So, and then, but sponsored by Okta and Sentinel One, they each ponied up a $50,000 check towards charity, each of them. And then, I'm going to pause for a second and ask you if that stinging insect is on the inside.
I'd let that stinging insect just do its thing.
Outside.
It's been on the inside the whole time. Okay. It's not bothering anybody.
Fantastic.
We'll get to it.
Cool.
If any of us goes down, we've been shot by a wasp. So
we're good. All good.
Totally okay. But
But then the Security Tinkers acted as the hosts for the event, and it was actually fantastic.
yeah, so to attend, you had to be a CISO, or have worn the CISO
Or
moniker at
very
some
heavily, yeah, CISO
yeah.
adjacent,
Yeah.
right?
And
So,
so we were there because we got selected out of the 47 or so submissions that they had. We were one of the top five to go and pitch to all these folks. There's no contest per se. It was just get five good, interesting new companies in front of these CISOs and get feedback from them. But Murad, one of our investors, tried to go and they said, well, you're not a CISO. And they didn't let them attend. And that's actually pretty common at RSA. Like people are trying to create a certain environment for a certain audience, and if
not
you're
all the events, right?
not all the
But
events,
some,
certainly
and it
some,
does make sense because not everybody can go to everything, and certain audiences for certain things. And I mean, if I hadn't been attached to Bruce, I would not have been at this event. So,
that's
and
fair.
if Bruce hadn't been pitching, we probably wouldn't have been at
We
the
wouldn't have been
event.
there either. I could have played I
Short,
was a
short
CISO
of the
card.
fact that, although may have had an in being part of the Security Tinkers, I'm not sure. But,
Yeah, we could have snuck in. But I think one of the slightly amusing things, if you will, is David Bradbury, who's the CISO at Okta, was there and kind of kicked things off. And he was on crutches, and he had been hit by a snowboarder, and he's a downhill alpine skier. And he was on a personal vendetta against snowboarders, which was pretty funny. And I got up there as the first speaker, and I have a recent skiing injury where my one finger is still all busted up. And so it was kind of like the early
still
stage
broken,
of that.
by the
Still
way.
broken, yeah.
Still waiting for surgery.
Yeah. So I'm still not typing right. I can't grip things right. It's weird when you're 49 years of a finger working one way, and then one day it's like I'm going to work differently, and my brain is not really accepted the differences yet. So anyway, I guess thematically from RSA, did you take away anything from the vendors that were there, or any themes?
Well, I think that I'm not sure that things really changed. I mean, last year when we just walking around, we saw, powered by AI or AI. I mean, it was everywhere. Like it was on every sign, I felt like. And I will say that I'm not sure that's really changed, but I think people got the message about that message being wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Powered by AI or AI centric was not like the first and foremost thing we saw, as you approached a booth. I mean, obviously, if that's the core of the business, it was there and that's appropriate. But it wasn't there on every single tagline of every single business, even if they incorporated it into their model, right?
Yeah.
So I think that was a change. But I don't, being actually working this year, having, stuff to do, we didn't get around the floor as much as last year. So, to me, nothing really big and new stood out in the same way that it did last year.
No, a lot of the feedback that I heard talking to people was like, this really felt like a bit of a rehash of last year. And
it's just slightly different, cleaner, I think, messaging.
Yeah, and the AI thing was definitely dialed down. I expected to roll in and see more agent-based, agentic type messaging, right? Because the hotness for the last like 3 or 4 months has been that, and I don't know if I didn't see as much as I expected, and I don't know if that's because the lead time on production, especially in the larger booths and larger vendors, is long enough that kind of a relatively recent change in wins doesn't show up on the booths and at the vendors, or if people were just a little nervous given the pushback last year of like everything was too AI-y, let's dial it down a bit. So we just didn't see that agentic focus. But I think what was interesting was I talked to practitioners, and there were a number of people who were like, hey, AI is actually kind of getting useful right now. Like we maybe have turned a corner for some of these cyber use cases where last year people were a little overly optimistic about the capability in 2024. In 2025, it was like, there's maybe something here. And so, which was good to hear, right? Like, I know there's been a lot of press about folks bailing out of their AI investments, but in general, like there was actually kind of the undercurrent that I heard is like there's actually some good stuff happening or can happen, and now we just got to get in front of the users. So that was interesting.
Yeah. I guess we'll see.
I
I don't know. Not a world I dabble in too much besides trying to avoid six fingers on a hand and
Yeah, right.
yeah, I mean
Yeah.
couple CTFs here and there. So
Yeah. Otherwise, the vendor, I think the big trade show floor, like the really complicated booths used to be, at least as one of the things I recall going years ago, was the big vendors had like the big production. And once you got away from the 20 by 20s and the 40 by 40 spaces and you got into the regular size booths, you had more kind of conventional like pop-up trade show booths and that kind of thing. And even that, there were very few companies that were just like a banner and a couple of people standing at a table. Even the
no, they
small
seem
booths
to
had like some
at least
really
something
high
like,
production value
or
going on.
at least kind of a booth in a box kind of thing, like what they had upstairs.
Yeah.
Which I think is I'm kind of a big fan. I mean, we have that internally for Turngate. We have, something that fits basically into a big case and we take it with us and the case actually becomes the table kind of thing. And I think it looks sharp. It's pretty easy to put together. And obviously, I mean, even if everybody has that, like it still looks good,
Yeah.
right? And I'm kind of a fan of that kind of setup. I don't know. But I think especially at a place like RSA, you can stand out kind of for the wrong reasons if you don't put a little bit of effort into it. So
Yeah, I'd be curious if he could do an event where vendors can sponsor, but the only thing they have when they show up are like markers, poster board, and scissors. Be like, make your booth, here's your space, and just let people go.
well, I mean, that kind of does happen at some places. I mean, let's just let me back up. So first of all, they would use two terms there, which we've convoluted it at ShmooCon for sure. But exhibitors are different than sponsors, are different than
Sure.
vendors
Okay, yeah.
at other locations,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So typically in maybe con speak, a vendor would be someone who sells something on the floor. As an exhibitor would be a company that comes and does what we do, right? And then a sponsor is just someone who's giving you money, maybe in exchange for speaking space or for nothing at all, or a brand placement, whatever. So, I mean, if you're going to get kind of nuanced about it, we could go down that path, right? But you might remember way back when at previous lives and jobs, we would sponsor like charity walks and stuff like that. And we get the opportunity to like decorate the outhouse.
Oh,
And
yeah.
things like that, right?
Yeah.
And so we would literally be given, here's the materials you're allowed and the adhesives you're allowed to use.
Yeah, because you wouldn't want to defile the outhouse with anything improper, bad adhesives or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
Just
you were
not
given
okay.
2 hours to kind of go do your thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, interesting concept, right? I
Yeah.
think it could be kind of fun.
Yeah.
I don't think you'd be able to charge a lot for that, but it would still be kind of fun.
It would be kind of fun. I think it leveled the playing field, right? So you can't spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. You just have artists, and money would go to the artists, right? Like it'd be people that can do art as opposed to
Yeah, kind of in the same vein of like art your talk or whatever.
Yeah.
Those kinds of
I
things.
think there might be something here. I think it's an interesting idea. So also in that vein, and I'm curious what the audience that's attached here thinks about vendor swag. We saw a wide diversity of vendor swag besides bags. I think most interestingly to our family was Optiv was giving out play mats, like the kind you would play like Magic or.
Well, I should say that you and I actually did not swag hunt.
We did not swag hunt
At all.
So,
we just happened to walk by and see this. So we are not calling out anybody because their swag was extreme or even great. We just happened to walk by and see this one, so we grabbed one.
Well, we had intel from Taylor.
We did. We
Taylor,
did get a little tiny bit of intel on this one.
Yeah.
But we didn't actually go seek it out. We just happened to
walk by.
ourselves in the area. So.
And to be clear, like all they did was scan my badge, and I've already unsubscribed from their list, and I got a really nice playmat out of the deal. So I'm curious what people think of like what vendor swag do you want to see? Like what's useful, because it is at the end of the day, it is a way to make your logo and presence persistent after the event, right? It's why you do this, is that people would actually wear or use the thing that you have.
Yeah, but there's a balance between that and waste and being compelling. And so for our use case, this was perfect because it will go to use. And I mean, my kids will know this brand name for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
So winning.
Also, Optiv, we'd be happy to talk about as a channel partner.
After you unsubscribe to their list.
I mean, I'm not going to be a buyer, but I might anyway. So, but I think our perennial swag on them that I think is probably worked one of the best was sticky notes. Because sticky notes always live in your drawer. You always kind of
Well,
need
nobody
them.
throws them away, but they don't always use them, and that's why they last forever,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Um, the one thing that we have handed out several times and always gets grabbed from the booth no matter where is eyeglass cloths, but only if they're the good
the good
ones, right?
ones.
Nobody
Yeah,
wants the thin, cheap ones
yeah,
because even if you don't wear glasses, like you'll use sunglasses or you'll clean your computer screen or your phone screen or something like that. So the good thick ones, which is what we've handed out, not just at Turngate, but other companies as well. Because you can always like you can use more than one of those too. Like it's not just like a one and
yeah,
done
yeah. One in a car,
situation.
at home, whatever. They're certainly useful. And then of course we're getting call outs to the orange Schmookon bags, which I think was probably the most fun bag that we
Oh,
ever.
the dry bags.
Yeah,
I love those, and I get pictures of those still to this day. That bag has been to Antarctica. It's been to Mount Everest. It's been, I think it's probably been on every continent at this point.
we're gonna go to Philmont with them this year. We're taking a bunch
That
on
would
the
be this continent.
Scott.
So,
Well,
and it's already been to Philmont.
that's
So,
fair. I guess it's not
um,
not new.
yeah,
Um,
it's that bag has been everywhere because it actually works.
yeah,
It's not. I mean, it's not. It's not. What is it? Sea to Summit or whatever. It's not that quality of bag, but
it's still good.
it's still a good bag.
I mean, we were concerned when you got the demo bags for those that they wouldn't be actual dry bags,
Yeah,
right?
but I tested those.
Yeah, we threw a bunch of like tissue paper.
Kleenex, actually like Kleenex, paper towels and Kleenex inside of it and sealed it all up. And I think I put it in the shower for like 20 minutes while kind of rotating it. I didn't submerge it because, I mean, that's not the point of the bag, but basically put it through a torrential rainstorm.
And it kept everything dry.
So
It worked. It
I
was
felt
actually a
pretty good about it.
decent dry bag.
Yeah. And I
Um,
did it with more than one bag.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah. Unlike the yo-yos that we bought,
the yo-yos are fine. They're just not trick yo-yos.
they're
My
not
mistake.
they're not strung correctly. We bought yo-yos before Blue Team Con last year, and I grabbed the box. Heidi was actually overseas, and so I went out to Chicago with these things, and I didn't realize until we got on site, but they
Yeah, I
didn't.
had dared Bruce that he should stand at the booth and do tricks. He only knows like one,
I
but
can do a little
still.
bit. I'm no
Yeah.
Smothers Brothers for anyone that's older than 70. But they don't have a loop around the axle. They were like rigidly like pegged right into the thing. And so as soon as they hit the bottom, they come right back up. So you can't do tricks with a yo-yo that instantly returns. And so I was like, I realized that the night before. I'm like, well, this won't fricking stand. And so I got up early and I went to a Blick, the art
Art
store
store, yeah.
that opens at like crazy o'clock in the morning in Chicago for some unknown freaking reason. And then I bought string, like yo-yo string. It wasn't yo-yo string, it was the closest approximation I could hand. And then I hand restrung a bunch of yo-yos at the booth. So I had to reach down inside with a pair of scissors and like snip as low as I could and get out the old one and then tie a new one with a knot and a loop and tie it around and spin it and test it and then hand it to random people like, here, I fixed your yo-yo. Like, it wasn't my yo-yo. I'm like, it is now and it's fixed. Which was a very awkward way to start a conversation. I'll be really honest. I could have had a better entree into selling Turngate than just handing people yo-yos and said, here, I fixed it. But
Well, because they didn't understand, but it goes to user experience.
yeah, let's
right?
say that. It went to user. I was just like,
This is my segue.
I'm not going to give away crappy yo-yos. We have to have good user experience yo-yos. So yeah. Yeah, that was user experience, not user interface. Good job.
Yeah. See?
There we go. We're really, really cooking along there.
Right.
Also, yo-yos aren't exactly useful, but they are fun.
But they are fun.
And they're wooden, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Um,
But yeah, so we survived. I don't know. Is there any other takeaways from RSA? Any other stories from our adventures out there that are worth telling?
I just think, the older I get, the pace of events like that are, and I'm not, I mean, personally, I'm not. I'm like one of those, like, what do they call introvert, extrovert people? I can handle it for a while, but then I can't, right? So, the pace of a long week like that is a lot. So I think, personally, my takeaway is like no more than 2 events a night. Try to get some sleep.
Yeah.
But no, I still think that it's very relevant as a place for where conversations happen, especially if you're in the business of selling your business,
Yeah.
other places for other things maybe, but it's still very valuable for networking, and it's got its place. It's not for everybody, but I don't think any conference is. So,
Yeah, and I think I mean it's certainly it's where everyone's at, so you go there, right? And that's kind of one of the things. Like even if you tire of it, you're like, well, it's where everyone's going to be, and it's where a lot of things happen. I mean, we met with a bunch of potential investors, and then existing investors, and then talked with a bunch of people who are potentially interested in the
yeah,
product, and some people we might want to recruit. So you cover a lot of ground in a 3 day
yeah,
time period.
no,
So what was interesting logistically is we stayed at a hotel that was part of a block of hotels down by Fisherman's Wharf that RSA had an agreement with, and they ran shuttles between, like coach buses, like the big buses. And so we were, wow, like a quality 15 or 20 minutes away by bus from
depend
the Moscone.
depending on traffic.
Yeah.
We took the shuttle a couple of times, and that worked well.
Yeah.
I think it worked really well, actually.
Yeah.
Um,
But the other times we took a Waymo, the automated cars, and I'll be honest, like they worked great. Like it was, we had, I'd say, one experience where our Waymo got kind of stuck, confused late at night on a hill, what to do through two traffic
I want to
light
see a picture
changes,
of that.
and then eventually figured it out and went along with it. And then we ended up in an insane traffic jam. Do you want me to cut over to it?
Yeah.
Um, so there's me in the passenger seat of a Waymo. Their slug vehicle is a Jaguar, so it's actually quite a nice ride. Um, and the other time is we ended up going through there's a short tunnel in downtown San Francisco that cuts through to get between the two parts of the town without going through over a hill. And there was some crisis or something on the other side, and it was just stuck in that tunnel for like half an hour, barely moving. And had it been like an aggressive cab driver, they may have made some other decisions in life. But the Waymo was just kind of politely standing in line with everybody else. So, but overall, it was a pretty cool and easy experience. Every time the Waymo was late picking us up, we would get a refund on the ride up to like $10. And we had a lot of refunds because even if it was like 2 or 3 minutes late, you give us $10 back.
Yeah.
And so we got
Actually kind of worked out with us.
basically free Waymo. And also we were next to the Waymo bedroom. So, or at least one of them. So there's a parking garage right next to our hotel where all the Waymos go to sleep at night and recharge. And so in the morning when we would summon, come here, Waymo, you would see like the path it's going to take, and it would spiral out of the garage right next to us and get in a big line with all the other Waymos, and they'll scoot off to where they're going to go. And ours just came around the corner and picked us up.
But the interesting thing that happened actually with the very first Waymo ride we took was, so we'd never done it. We kind of know what to expect. The Waymo shows up, and then so you download the app, right? And the Waymo approaches, and there's a banner that spins on the top, and it's associated, I think, with your email address. So it shows the first two letters of your email address. Then you approach the car with your phone, and you hit the unlock button, and you get in your car, right? And then it says welcome. In our case, it says welcome G Dead Schmoo. So we are standing on the sidewalk, and the Waymo approaches, and about not more than 5 seconds later, another Waymo comes up. But the first Waymo gets there, and the banner starts spinning at the top, and it says GD. And we walk up to the car, it unlocks. I climb in, I look down, and that's not Bruce's name. And another gentleman walks up, and he's like, that's my car. And we look up, and the second Waymo is also flashing a GD. And so we totally had name collision with our first Waymo ride, which led to this, which was much laughter. We get into our correct Waymo, and that for the next 20 minutes led to a very geeky discussion about the birthday paradox, how that correlated to the Waymo paradox, and how much it was the same and or different, because obviously, names start, how many names start with, I don't know, J as opposed to X is going to be very different, or email addresses, I suppose, kind of the same thing. But
so the birthday paradox, for those that don't know, is how many people they have to have in a room to have a 50% chance of a birthday collision where two people have the same birthday. And it turns out the number is 23. It's not a very large number, and most people will guess much higher. But because of probability, you're only asking for a 50% opportunity, not guaranteed. You end up with a relatively low number. And you can use the birthday paradox and the math behind it. There's a number to solve it concretely involves factorials, and a lot of them. And so if you're doing factorials on a large data set, it's not great. And so, but you can use the birthday paradox to basically determine how big like unique identifiers need to be in a database to avoid collisions over the lifetime of the system and that kind of thing. And so actually my last job, I wrote a whole white paper on like how to build identity systems and unique identities based on the birthday paradox and the math behind it and everything. So we always had large enough identifiers, but not psychotically large that we were wasting storage space. And so having that background and other nerds in the car, it devolved into what's the likelihood of a collision happening, like a birthday paradox style collision, not two Waymos colliding, but
okay,
collision in names.
But the Waymo paradox has to be real, right? And it has to be something that they have discussed internally. And it has to be. It has to be.
But right? I mean, it's on the order of like, it would happen if two Waymos show up at exactly the same time. I think we calculated it's on the order of like, 1 in 30 rides.
Right. But the fact that it happened on our first ride was hysterical. Yeah. So I just think that's great.
Yeah. It did not cause me to change my because you can change what letters it will display, and you could do like ZZ or something if you just want to.
But but everybody's going to do that.
Yeah. So then you have to be like, okay, if people are going to get cute with that one, do I take like a normal letter and a weird letter? Like, do I do like a BQ or something like that? I don't know. You could try to minimize your chance at collisions, or you can just like duke it out to see who gets the Waymo. But then if you win and it wasn't your Waymo, you're going to end up in the wrong place anyway, because you can't really redirect somebody else's car when you're in it. Although when we bailed out of the one that got stuck in the tunnel after half an hour and decided that we were going to walk, and it was literally like 3 blocks, we should have bailed out way before then.
Well, I didn't want to bail out in the tunnel.
And the Waymo knew nobody was in the car anymore, because as soon as I got out of the car, it said, thanks for the ride on my app. And I was like, okay, thank God, because I was worried it was going to try to continue on to where we were going to go empty. But no, it recognized that we had pulled the handles and left the building, as it were. So
yeah.
Anyway, cool.
But yeah, no, I liked the Waymo situation. I liked I found it a lot easier in a lot of ways. Than at least down there. I don't know. But
and I'll be honest, like I remember back when we were up north in Alaska in the mid 90s, did you take the AI class that Fairbanks had? Or was that just me?
I don't think I took that.
Okay. So I took one from Dr. Roth, who I think is still with us somewhere. Not physically here, but he's still on the planet. Dr. Roth taught a AI class in the 90s. So UAF, the University of Alaska Fairbanks, had a huge supercomputing center.
I don't think I took that.
I don't think he did either. But we had a big supercomputing center because of all the oil exploration that went on in Alaska. And so there was a Cray YMP and T3D, which had about as much computing power as a fraction of your iPhone. But nonetheless, at the time, it was certainly cutting edge. And so, they had a big emphasis on AI and high performance math and that kind of thing. And there was I remember watching a video online, which is a big freaking deal in the mid 90s, of a research project to make autonomous cars. And there was like a car with basically like a house full of electronics bolted on with cables trailing behind and whatever. And that was like the first step at like autonomous vehicles. And I remember thinking like, not in our lifetime, like driving is too complex a situation. And driving in any city that isn't like built on a grid, rail flat, and has like 8 people living in it. Not in my lifetime will we have autonomous vehicles that drive around.
Autonomous vehicles.
That do, yeah, right. And I'll be goddamn, but like the Waymo, like I felt totally safe. We have friends that were like, I don't get that thing. I don't think I'm safe. I'm like, I think I'm safer here than in an Uber.
Everywhere we went, people were talking about the Waymo still, and happened last year too. But like everyone was talking about them. Like you couldn't get away from people talking about it. Which I thought was kind of funny because they're new, but they're not like new.
Right.
They were around last year. Although now they weren't as easy. There weren't as many last year by any stretch, but now they're like everywhere.
Yeah, they were everywhere.
At least in the Bay Area. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of misinformation about how they operate.
Yeah, they pretty well fail safe. I mean, one of their actual, I think
every vehicle's got issues, I think, but
yeah, but I think in general, like their bias is to not run people over. And so because of that, they end up, and they definitely obey the traffic laws. Like I think one of the issues with the tunnel is that the tunnel was actually, it was 4 lanes, 2 going in each direction. And the direction we were going in, the right-hand lane was bus only. And so the Waymo's like, no, I can't go there. but other drivers are taking it because they were like, this is all
Well, because
nonsense.
they were going to turn right, like right at the end of the tunnel, so they were hopping in that lane so they could
Yeah.
just take that right-hand turn or whatever.
But the
And
Waymo will not
the Waymo won't
violate
do
that
that.
rule, which was interesting to watch. So that was one of the reasons we were stuck there for so long, is Waymo was being a diligent driver.
Yeah, and I looked up some of the stats. Most of the accidents, at least as of late, were actually caused by human drivers in conjunction with Waymos. Now, is it because they failed safe and caused gridlock? I don't know, but
Yeah.
I didn't go that deep with it.
There's a great video of a Waymo hitting a pizza delivery robot in LA.
Oh, it was a battle of the robots?
Yeah, the robot was crossing against the light, and it's a little tiny thing, and the Waymo ran into it, and then they both backed up and then continued on their merry way. Like two roads, boink. And I don't know if they apologized to each other in some language or not, but they just kind of continued on.
Well, that whole thing came out last week, was the week before, that like saying thank you to ChatGPT costs it money, right? So and I know it's not the same, but I was very aware of I wanted to say thank you to the Waymo every time we got out of the Waymo, just because that's, you're conditioned to, like, you get out of the car and you're like, thanks
for the ride.
Right.
Yeah.
And obviously it doesn't cost Waymo money for me to say that to an empty vehicle, but every time I was like catching myself saying that, I was giggling about that article.
Well, because now you're conscious of it, right?
Well, I'm so conscious
like every
of it.
interaction could potentially cost the system owner money.
Yeah, but to be clear, I never thanked Chat. I know many people who did and do and are doing it now.
Yeah, some people have decided it's time.
But I never did.
Yeah,
why mince words?
Well, and it's really funny. Somebody asked about the Waymo ride, and I joked, well, it asked for a tip at the end. I didn't know what to do, and they thought I was serious. I'm like, no. It's literally like it has not devolved that far. I didn't have to tip the robot, so it didn't kill us. But that'll be version 2, maybe. We'll see.
Yeah, somebody did ask, like, how they knew if the Waymos were clean when you got in, and by and large, all the cars were quite clean.
Quite.
We got into one and there were it was like a paper towel like on the ground. And I did remember kind of checking up first before I sat down. I was like, oh, I didn't even.
Yeah, something's gone wrong in that car, and then you're the person in there afterwards. Like, no one's cleaned it, right? You're just gonna.
Yeah, so I didn't know.
But we were taking them generally normal hours.
Yeah,
so.
I didn't know if that
if you're having a bad day at 10 a.m.
Bad an issue that would actually be, and what I don't know what the protocol is for watching for those kinds of shenanigans, but by and large they were very, very, very clean.
Yeah.
So
yeah. All right.
Maybe even cleaner than most.
For sure.
Other vehicles we've taken.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know. I guess we just plugged Waymo a whole lot.
I was going to say that I didn't mean for this to turn into the Waymo podcast, but I guess it did this week. But I mean, it's part of the RSA experience, right? Like when you're on the ground in San Francisco, you do San Francisco things.
I mean, they aren't just there.
LA's
but in other San Francisco or California things we did eat at In-N-Out, and we ate some sourdough bread. That's about it. That's all we had time for.
Yeah, pretty much. We did not get Levi's had sponsored Giants for that week, and so you could buy a lot of tickets at Giant Stadium for $5.01.
We didn't do that.
We did not do that. Had half a mind to go buy a whole section and just hand them out to random people.
We did get to see some friends on our last night there, so we got to have dinner with some good friends. So that was kind of our one.
Yeah, that was the first real decompression we had.
Decompression time. So that was amazing.
Yeah.
But other than that, no sightseeing.
Yeah.
No, nothing really crazy.
4 days of honest work.
We did get a great view of the city, though. We one of the events we went to was actually at somebody's house, and it had a fantastic kind of city overlook. So that was nice.
Yeah. So I mean, overall, it was certainly, I think it was worth our time. For all the reasons that we wanted to be out there. It was definitely the right thing for us as a company, and I think us as individuals. It was great to just get out and see people and that kind of thing. So I'm sure we'll be back next year, and then now we just look forward to Vegas and all the shenanigans out there.
So I think moving forward with this, you and I need to figure out what time, if we're going to keep. We'd started this on Wednesdays more just to give us. It was the time that worked in our schedule, but it's obviously not the most optimal time in general, even for us.
No.
So we need to kind of take a look at our schedule and figure out, what's the best time.
Yeah.
For our viewers, for us going forward. But also formatting, and then, how we want to, like how we really want to move forward with this. Somebody we were talking to at one of the events in RSA actually brought up something Bruce and I had forgotten that we had done, but we did a whole little thing where we drove around in our car and just talked at each other it actually was like an hour. It was really long. Actually, we talked at each other for 3 hours and edited it down to an hour. Like, who's got time for that anymore?
Yeah.
But apparently they really loved it. And I'm like, well, I don't know if we can quite pull that off, but it was fun.
Yeah. Yeah. We could
'cause
choose different modes of
basically-
locomotion. We do it horseback and bikes.
with the cameras. Right. Okay.
Maybe not.
Different modes of locomotion. Can you imagine you and I trying to talk? Actually, the bike thing is funny because people ask us about that all the time. When we're out on rides together. I'll let you tell the story because it's funnier.
So Heidi and I have done a fair bit of long distance biking together as a family and then as a couple. It didn't really occur to us. I mean, we spend basically all the time together. We work together. We live together. We're very, very rarely apart. And
We're married.
Well, we're married, right? But I mean, there are married couples who spend more time apart than we do.
I meant the live together part.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
there are married couples who don't manage to achieve that because of work situations and stuff, but we do.
Yeah. So when we bike, you're usually just continuing to chat. A lot like this. You just happen to have, cameras and mics and you get to listen to us. But otherwise, this is very similar to what we're like normally. And, I didn't think much of it. We have had people ask us.
Well, more. I mean, this is a question we get asked a fair bit, which was striking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you talk to each other? What do you talk about? And it was like,
well, how much do you talk? To
like
each
this
other?
fear of like, if I did this with a partner and you ride for 6 to 8 hours a day together for multiple days, that means you're on the hook to have a conversation with the other person for 6 to 8 hours. And for some people, like, that's a lot, right? Like I am not prepared to talk to anyone, my spouse or anyone else for 8 hours straight. Some people were actually more intimidated by that than like the physical aspect of riding a bike for 8 hours, which is really interesting.
But it made us stop and think, like, what do we actually do? And we do actually talk a fair bit. I mean, we sometimes don't, right? But we actually do. Go ahead.
Well, so the funniest thing, the one time this really came to a head, and I had not even this had not even registered in my mind that this was a thing
until the story was told.
So we were biking
until an example was needed,
and it was deep in the day, and it was awful riding, and Heidi was kind of at her wit's end, and we had about another at least 2.5 or 3 hours, or I can't remember which leg of this ride it was, but as we go to get back on the bike, Heidi says to me sternly, "I hope you have something good to talk about." It's like, whoa. And that's like telling someone, be funny, right? Like, now's the time for jokes. Like, I don't have jokes on demand. They just come out. And so then I was like, oh shit, I don't know what to say. And so I like vapor locked.
Oh, he did. But he basically then started telling me what he had read in the newspaper.
It was just, I was just literally.
And it was fine.
Yeah. You just needed the distraction.
I needed the distraction. So on that particular ride, I'd gotten a new bike, which was great. The bike was absolutely fantastic, right?
Yeah.
What I had not done was switch out my saddle, which was a huge mistake.
Yeah,
so
she rode with the saddle that came with the bike, not the saddle that she'd worn in for thousands of miles.
Right. And so by about 8 hours into this ride, it might have even been the second day, I don't remember at this point, but getting back on that bike was a just not my favorite thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was kind of like, I just wanted to be done. Oh, and then it was like insult to injury. You finished the ride that day, and I realized I'd left my shoes in the car back at the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
And we had to walk to dinner. There's no room service. I had to walk to dinner. So I had to, what did I do? We went downstairs to this tiny little like gas station type store.
So yeah, so for those that know, it was we rode from Pittsburgh to Ohiopyle, and Ohiopyle is like the confluence of a couple of rivers in the middle of nowhere in northwestern or southwestern PA, and it's a cute little tourist town. There's a state park there. Everything's great, except we were there in the off season. Like we rode it like in April, and Ohiopyle is not rolling by April, so there was literally like one general store open. So I went downstairs to go get some food because we needed some snacks and to buy Heidi some footwear. Hopefully. And I got her, I think, pink flip-flops with like mermaid flip-flops with glitter.
Which is so not me if you know me.
Not at all.
Like not even remotely
It was also like
close.
50 degrees and the wind was hammering and we had to walk like a half a mile to dinner. So Heidi walked in these mermaid flip-flops.
Very carefully because I was so afraid they were going to tear at my feet.
Oh my God. So we're like
So afraid.
strolling, trying to balance the uncomfortableness with the foot, with the cold weather and whatever. And eventually we had dinner and we came back. And then I think those shoes, I think they're.
I just gave them away actually. They
she
sat
gave
in my
them away,
closet for a while. They were like, like victory for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Could not believe that I left my shoes in the car. I've never, ever, ever done anything like that. It was,
yeah. But it was really funny to be like, and that was the first time I was ever conscious of like talking to you during a bike ride. And it was when you called it. I think if you hadn't said anything, it would have been fine. I would just could have been talking about you. You're like, you better have something to say. I was like, oh shit.
It's so funny. And I don't know why in that particular moment I needed, I don't know why I needed it then, because we've had other times when I was like, don't talk to me.
You're just focusing.
Yeah. So focused. But I think, it was a whole different thing.
Yeah.
So, to totally go off the rails, but to kind of,
we were totally, this was going to be a half-hour discussion about RSA.
This is what we do though. And this
20
is
minutes
how we
on
talk.
Waymo.
I mean, I could kind of spin it back to like some UX stuff if you want, or we could just like, keep chatting about nothing.
Yeah.
That's what people like.
Yeah. Well, did you you said you did somewhere you wanted to carry the conversation?
I had a segue. Okay. Go to transportation.
There you go. Yeah, we could get some segues.
But it was back when I tried the UX,
yeah,
hook and it didn't work. We could use that next week.
Okay.
So I will hook you all in. I'm going to talk about shampoo.
Oh, there you go. Oh, yes. We'll talk about shampoo. We'll cover some UX stuff next week. Maybe we made a lot of updates to the product. I think it might be a decent thing to show the product off a bit next week, and talk a bit about what we've got going on, but we can jam through UX and talk through that too, and hopefully find the rhythm again now that we're through RSA, and it's only like 6 weeks to summer vacation. 104 days to summer vacation.
100 and I can't
remember. Yeah. Anyone want to sing the Phineas and Ferb theme song? No. Anyone? Okay. Yeah.
I don't remember
I don't remember it either. I don't even remember how many days. I just remember it was some 100 and something days to summer vacation. But
you know what?
We're on side of that. What?
I can hear Paul and Storm singing in my head.
Oh yeah.
If you don't know who Paul and Storm are, you should go look them up. They are a very funny comedic singing duo. Who we had the honor of having them play at ShmooCon one year, but they also do the Joco
cruise.
Yeah.
And they're on Blue Sky, and they're quite funny still.
Yeah, they are amazing.
Yeah, Paul and Storm are good people.
Very good people. So check them out. They are quite funny. If you ever get a chance to go see them in concert, I would do that.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So next time I'm going to talk about my little funny story about UI, UX, and shampoo.
Yes. And we will join Synapse in being very joyful about the countdown to not making school lunches.
Well, I don't make school lunches anymore. Yeah. So I did my decades of doing that. And now Bruce gets to do it for one child.
Yes. It's actually,
and many.
He'll basically eat anything too. So it's nice and easy. So, piece of cake.
I don't know. You guys have a weird rotation. They're like nerds about it. I was like, food in a box here.
There you go. All right. Anyway, we will see you all next week. Thanks everybody for your time. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Bye.